Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Dean Ryan Reed from St. Vincent's Episcopal Church. Thank you for coming down today. After the invocation, we'll remain standing for our pledges.
Okay. Thank you for the invitation to open this meeting with prayer. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to live in this nation which honors liberty, and we pray for all our elected leaders and all our public servants that they may lead us all in the ways of justice and peace. We thank you for each of the neighborhoods and communities represented here today and for all the cities and communities, and ask that with your divine protection they may be havens of peace and prosperity. We pray for the members of this court that you may grant them divine wisdom in the ordering of our common lives, and that they might use our resources rightly for the common good in the service of all and to the honor and glory of your name. We pray these things in the name of your Son, Jesus, who with you and the Holy Spirit lives and reigns, one God forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, I have one announcement. As you can tell by the agenda, we do have a work session today. Normally, our work sessions occur after closed. However, it appears that the first part of the agenda, the open session, is going to move fairly quickly this morning. And so we will be moving into the work session prior to going to closed today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Court members, you have before you the regular minutes. The minutes of our regular meeting. Here we go. We're going to start this week off right. The minutes of our regular meeting of February the 3rd.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have an announcement as well as a resolution for ratification.
Yes, first the resolution. It's in memorial of the life of Mrs. Walter Beatrice Campbell Barber, who was the first African-American woman to serve on the Fort Worth City Council and actually served Tarrant County as an interim justice of the peace in Precinct 8 several years ago. She passed away last week, and this resolution was of great comfort to her family, so I move its ratification.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
As to the announcement, Precinct 1 this coming Saturday, Valentine's Day, the 14th of February at 10 a.m. will be sponsoring a prostate cancer education and screening event. It will be free to the public. We have partnered with the Moncrief Cancer Care Center, with JPS Health Network, with THR Harris Methodist Hospital, Fort Worth, and with the Tarrant County Public Health Department to put on this event. The purpose of the event is to focus on men's health. Men have different health issues from women, and we as men often ignore our health issues. So we're asking all men who need to know their prostate cancer status, and all women who love men who need to know their prostate cancer status, to come to this event at the Public Health Building at South Main and Rosedale Street on this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. Lunch will be served, free. Everything that day is free, including the screening if you choose to have it. So come, get yourself checked. Decide to live, elect life.
Thank you, Commissioner. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second. A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item that we're asking the court to consider today, and that's to release the $169,974,000 of collateral as outlined in your court communique.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda, Ms. Glenn.
We have a motion is second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, and thank you.
Good morning, Tina.
We have three additional items. The second item, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for Justice of the Peace 3. Judge Casey is requesting the continuation of out-of-class pay for his assistant court manager through May, and we're estimating that the impact to the general fund will be approximately $1,500, including fringe benefits.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve changes to the table of organization for criminal court administration. Criminal court administration is requesting an auxiliary court coordinator. That individual, once hired, will provide support for the TechShares adult case management system, the development of it and the implementation of it. We're estimating that the impact to the general fund will be approximately $63,000.
Move approval.
Well, that, I'll second for discussion. So that wasn't included in the budget this year?
It was not.
What this is that there was a part-time position, and that $63,000 will, there are already $39,000 in the account already for that position. And we've determined that instead of a part-time, we're going to need a full-time to do the courts module.
So the $60,000 annually, this first year will be offset by the 39, and then it would be something that we would be looking at putting it on a permanent basis.
Yes.
Other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our fourth and final item, we're asking the court to approve the 17th Annual Tarrant County Employee Picnic at Six Flags Over Texas. We are looking at the date of October 11th for the picnic. Tickets this year will be $41.45. The employee share of that will be $25 per ticket. What we're requesting from the court today is the deposit of $5,181.25, and we do have funds available in HR's budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Chris?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chris.
Members of the court, we have two items for consideration before you this morning. The first item is it's requested that the Commissioners' Court approve the TechShare Civil, Family, and Juvenile Assessment Agreement and authorize the Conference of Urban Counties payment in accordance with the approved project payment schedule.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, bear with me, it's a little bit of reading here, and I will do my best. It is requested that the Commissioners' Court approve Amendment Number 2 to the TechShare Juvenile and Juvenile Case Management System Basic 2013 Resource Sharing Addendum by and among Dallas County and Tarrant County, collectively referred to as the funding counties, and then the Texas Juvenile Probation Commission and the Texas Conference of Urban Counties, and they also authorized the county auditor to release the first payment of $150,829.84 without first appearing on the claims register.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Very
you.
good, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you to your staff for your work and assistance with our event on Saturday.
Thank you, sir. I'll
have done a
convey those to
tremendous
them.
job for us. Thank you.
I'll convey your words to them. Thank you.
Your Honor, I may make a comment on the JCMS piece that Chris just presented. Collin County is coming in as for Texas Sheriff Juvenile on this particular item also. And because of the way that we have structured this, I believe Tarrant County will be receiving somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 for the entrance of Collin County into this software program. That
Yes.
should happen within the next 30
And this is about the
days.
third or fourth check we've received, I believe, as other counties have joined previously.
Denton County is a full member now, and the state's a full member. So we are, the good thing about this is that we're now recouping some of our development costs that the county paid.
Thank you, Chris. Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We have one item for consideration this morning. That is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2015-042. It's our annual contract for background screening services for both human resources and facilities management. A recommendation be to award for the contract terms, selecting as our primary vendor Quick Search, as our secondary vendor Global Screening Solution.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously
Thank you.
with Commissioner Brooks absent.
GK, let me ask a question, not on the agenda
Yes, sir.
today, but, or not ask a question, make a statement. The bail bond board went out for RFP on a investigative contract.
Yes, sir.
And that contract came back, it was assigned to the district clerk and 2 of our judges. Their recommendation was that we stay with the same firm, but we need to get that on the agenda. It has to be approved by the court also.
Yes, sir, we will.
Thank you.
Are there any appointments today? Being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move for the approval of the claims. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manions?
Your Honor, as part of the weekly briefing items, we do have the legislative update. Mr. Mendez has included that in our court material. We stand ready to attempt to answer any questions the court may have as it relates to that.
Excuse me, could we go back to appointments?
Sure.
I've got an appointment.
Okay.
To the Historical Commission, I'd like to appoint Kalita Strickland. And that's my last vacancy on the Historical Commission.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Cleta Strickland. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Now, on the legislative issues, and I don't want to surprise him today. I'll surprise him, but I won't ask him to come up here. I mean, I know we've got Mark stuff in here, but I'd like for maybe once a month, for Casey to come up in and kind of just update us on our federal stuff.
That would be appropriate.
And I believe that if you look in your electronic book,
There is a copy.
we've been including a report from
Right, I know we get that, but I would like to see him come up on I mean, I know where Mark is,
We want to see him in person.
and I see him in person, but I just don't want to call him up here today. I just say, but if we could on a monthly basis, maybe have him come up and
Absolutely.
talk to us.
We'll simply schedule that.
And we'll give him a week just so that we don't catch him totally off guard, although I'll bet he's prepared.
He says he's prepared, but we're trying to cut this meeting a little short, so just chill, Casey.
We'll make sure that we'll line that up.
Public health, are we doing anything there?
We don't have a presentation on that today, Your Honor.
Okay, then I guess at this point in time, we'll move into our work session.
Yes, sir. If we could go to the work session, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to attempt to do today. We're going to have several different presenters. Obviously, you know, we want to talk a little bit about our strategic plan. Also, we want to talk about our governing for results issue. We've provided some material in your packet today as it relates to that. We'll have a PowerPoint, and then we'll follow it with some direct discussions concerning the employee satisfaction or the employee survey as part of the strategic plan. Also today, what we're going to do is ask that the court engage in a conversation as relates to that goal within the strategic plan that deals with transportation. So what we're going to have, Ms. Boutte is going to begin the discussion. She'll go through the PowerPoint. Then we'll ask HR to come up. I believe Robin's going to make that presentation. And engage you all in some discussion on the survey. And then finally, we're going to ask Bill to come up and talk a little bit about the transportation thing. One of the things we're going to tag team this at the staff level, so you'll be hearing from several different people at any one of these particular topics. So, Candace, if you want to start.
Thank you, GK, and good morning, Judge and Commissioners.
Good morning, Ken.
GK has already laid out our agenda, so I'll go ahead and get started with the Governing for Results policy. I always like to make reference to the Governing for Results policy whenever we discuss the strategic plan, because it really is the foundational piece, not just for the strategic plan, but also for business planning, resource allocation, and performance-based program review. There are multiple layers, and that first layer of the organization sitting down and actually defining what are the goals that they would like to achieve over the next 5 years, and actually creating the roadmap of how we will achieve those goals is in the strategic plan. It was approved by the court in late FY 2014, and since then staff has been working to implement that. The majority of the initiatives that were listed in the strategic plan are underway. We're also working at the department level to develop their scorecards. So as we move into FY 16, the idea is that all departments will have had an opportunity to participate in training, develop their scorecards, and we will continue to report on those scorecards. As we begin to develop the FY 17 budget, we'll begin to introduce the idea of business planning and resource allocation. Basically, the idea of where the organization's priorities are, so are our funding. Lastly, after we've had an opportunity to look at the programs that directly align with the strategic plan, we'll start to evaluate and say, have we really been successful in implementing those programs, asking the questions if we need to allocate additional resources, and really look if those programs are still meeting the needs of the community and the priorities that we have outlined in the strategic plan.
Do you mean 17 or do you mean 16?
No, I actually mean 17. We will begin the budget process during FY 16, but it will actually be involved in the FY 17 budget.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we know the whole purpose of the Governing for Results policy is to improve our service delivery, improve the managerial and policy decisions that we make, also improve accountability amongst staff, and based off the annual report that we will publish, allow the public to see our clearly defined goals and also our progress towards those. So back to that first layer of the strategic plan. As the court knows, an in-depth SWOT analysis was conducted where we engaged elected officials, the county administrator, key staff. Out of those discussions came the organizational goals that we set for the next 5 years. The plan was approved by the court of, July 1st of 2014. And here's my quick version of those goals. We will improve our financial standing through looking at our policies as well as the concept of performance-based budgeting. We'll maximize operational efficiency through productivity metrics countywide, as well as looking at technology. We'll enhance organizational culture, as well as enhance our resident satisfaction. And the last two goals really speak to as the county continues to grow, improve our mobility, and we'll collaborate with key stakeholders to grow and diversify the local economy. So the format of the strategic plan is those goals that I mentioned before, and then 7 objectives that give additional focus or act as focal points. And then those 14 priority improvement initiatives that are really the action behind achieving those goals. I always like to say as this plan continues, as we continue to go through it, it will be an evolving document. It will not be stagnant or just sit on the shelf, but we'll ensure that as the county's priorities change, that we include that in the strategic plan, and also as we complete projects, that we also are introducing new projects to help push forward those goals. So when we talk about the relevancy of the plan, we have to make sure that we are gauging our success. Again, the 2 tactical tools that we have in place are the priority improvement initiatives and the department scorecards. So the department scorecards really give each department the opportunity to show how they fit in the bigger picture, to tell their unique story. And it includes their mission statement, their goals and objectives that align with the strategic plan goals and objectives, and also the performance metrics that help track their success. We like to call those key performance indicators or KPIs. So we'll now focus on those priority improvement initiatives. As GK stated, you all have received a copy of the first quarter report. This will give you an opportunity if you'd like to ask any questions to the staff or to those leads to get further clarification. We ask that you hold your questions for the employee survey and the transportation plan because those leads will address the court. Do you have any other questions on the other initiatives?
I guess a couple things. On page 4, right, that we talk about our cash flow. When is that policy going to come to the court? Because I know it's got scheduled for
yes, sir.
January, but obviously
right.
We're past that point.
We are revising the timeline. We hope to bring all of the policies as far as our excessive cash, the reserves, and the debt management policy to the court by the end of March. So you'll see that update in the second quarter.
Okay, so
report.
If that's the case, then it would seem to me like on that bottom thing where you say in budget, yes, on schedule.
Yes, sir.
That's not a yes.
Well, actually, and that's a good point, Judge. This is first quarter, so this is actually reflective through October and December. We're currently in second quarter. You wouldn't get an update on that report until April. So we will provide a revised timeline in the second quarter report.
Okay.
So this is a snapshot,
I understand,
basically.
but if we're going to get something and we're already past it, then I don't think we ought to be saying that we're on schedule.
I see your point. In that snapshot, in that moment in time, we were on schedule, but we will, when we bring it to the court, we'll make sure that it's the most up to date.
Okay. And then with regards, I mean, I know that you're saying that by the end of March, we're going to have all of this. If we could we get notified of when the meetings are in case we have a desire to be at those meetings? Because sometimes a concern that I have is that we get this after all the work's been done and we really don't have an opportunity to input into it, if we have any input to put into it.
Yes, sir.
And so as you know, it talks about the fact that Debbie is, going to be meeting with folks. If we want to be a part of that, I'd like to know when those meetings are so that all of us can either be there or not be there or whatever. And if we decide that there's 3 of us that want to be there, then we'll post it and go forward. But just giving us ideas of when those meetings are occurring would be helpful.
Yes, sir. We'll relay that message to the leads to make sure that you all are included.
You're going to talk about employee survey.
Yes, sir.
The the thing that's not the healthcare clinic or the wellness program, what's the status on develop a strategy to address health care coverage and cost? And part of it was to look at the possibility of doing the employee clinic.
Yes, sir. I'll let Tina speak further to that. JPS, we're still waiting on their proposal. Tina can give us a more updated version.
Well, actually, that's my update. We're waiting on the proposal from JPS. Thank you, Candace. We've actually had, Judge in Court, we had, I think, 3 meetings with JPS. We began in the fall of last year. Several of us met with Nikki, and I've forgotten Nikki's last name. She's VP, I believe, of HR. And at that time expressed our interest in the possibility of a partnership with JPS for an employee clinic. They seemed very receptive to the idea. So that meeting led to another meeting. There was information that was requested on some of our major diagnoses codes. We provided that information. The last meeting that we had, I believe, was before Thanksgiving, if I recall correctly. And at that time, Nikki advised us that they had JPS sought counsel from a local consultant because their discussions had evolved at that time, at least, from a partnership with Tarrant County to possibly partnership with Tarrant County and other agencies. And so they were taking a more global look at the idea of partnerships. It's my understanding that consultant has completed his work, or at least what they've asked for. We have I believe there's a meeting that's been scheduled for the February 24th.
Good.
And so we should have more information to bring back to the court after the 24th.
Have you asked them if there's going to be a question with us being on United Healthcare and them being on Cigna?
We have talked about that, and so we're not really sure what they're going to come back to us with. We did make them aware that we do have some space downtown at the Plaza building on the 3rd floor that we think would be an ideal location, and so what we're anticipating, Commissioner, would be a proposal, actually 2 proposals, maybe more, but one that would give us pricing to use that location and perhaps pricing for a different location. So obviously we're trying to get something, central to or in the downtown area or as close as possible to the downtown area possible. But again, we don't know what that proposal or proposals will look like at this point. So we're pretty anxious.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
On page 8, we talk about that we have installed the metric software
Yes, sir.
and that 12 departments have already developed their metrics. Could we see what those metrics are?
Yes, sir.
and
We'll
kind of
provide
give
you a
some
copy.
examples and provide us a copy with
Yes,
that?
sir. Are there any other questions?
Good job on the report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And as your first presentation before this court, it was very well done.
Doing very well.
Thank you.
So relax.
She brought her water with her. She doesn't
Right.
leave the podium to get the water. So,
Second person that's told me to do that.
I noticed.
I'm a little nervous. I'm working through it.
You're
Take
doing a
deep
great
breath.
job.
You're doing great.
All righty. Well, I will hand it over to Robin to address the court.
See, you lived through it.
I did.
I hope that bodes well for me as well.
You've got experience.
Yeah, y'all might not be as gentle with
Not
me.
your first rodeo. Robin.
So I am here to talk about the employee survey or engagement survey, satisfaction survey. It's called a variety of things. And the why of why we are doing this is we want to, of course, identify our strengths and our weaknesses in the organization that might be impacting our business performance. And, of course, we want to have reports back that will give us some insights that we can take as action items to improve our countywide performance. So we've gone through multiple steps with regard to this engagement survey. Our first step was to review a variety of vendors and their methodologies and how they implemented an engagement survey. And we did select the Hay Group as our vendor. And since that time, we have been having not only team meetings with our group internally, I have been having weekly calls with Hay to discuss the process, the plans, as we've had questions. They did provide us a list of 74 questions from which we will provide you a recommended survey tool. Yes, sir?
I've got a question about the process for selecting the Hay Group. What kind of outreach did you do to that vendor community?
We
to
actually,
solicit?
we actually reached out to a variety of vendors. We reached out to SHRM, which is Society of Human Resources Management. They have a process for engagement survey, and we reached out to ICMA and looked at they have a third party that does theirs. And so those were the three basic ones that we looked at in our selection. So once we went through these questions, there are some core questions that Hay includes, and they address the dimensions that they believe are important in an engagement survey. And some of the dimensions are empowerment, engagement, of course, enablement, confidence in leaders, communications, and a variety of others. And so we have tried to put together an appropriate list of questions. We have the ability to also write some unique questions that are just related to the county. We are going to be providing you that list of questions, our recommended survey to you all today, and give you the opportunity to review it, see if you think we've got gaps or if we've missed anything that you believe we need to address. And we'll get back with you hopefully later this week to get your feedback on that. If you need a little more time, obviously we'll work with you on that. So once that final document is decided, then we will provide that to Hay, and we will start the process of what we call the communications campaign. And so what the communications campaign is for is we'll initially have a kickoff meeting with the Commissioners Court and the key stakeholders, and we'll talk about why the survey is important, what the importance of participation. We really want to reach out to everybody and have everybody respond, or as many as we can. We want to talk about the results process and the commitment of the court to address those weaknesses that might be found, and then, of course, the confidentiality of the responses. So those responses will go to Hay. It is an electronic survey. We have already discussed sending folks out to some of the remote locations where individuals might need some help with that. If we have to, we can do some paper surveys, but the preference is to do it electronically. So we will do that communications campaign. And then once we've kind of gotten the key stakeholders and the Commissioners Court, the kickoff meeting, then we'll start a campaign to the employees. We'll do emails, flyers, some home mailers, and try to get them educated about what this process is about so that when they actually get the survey, they'll understand why it's coming to them and what information we're trying to gather.
How are you going to, if it's electronic and it's anonymous, how are you going to determine that somebody didn't fill it out multiple times?
As I understand it, based on my discussions with Hay, it's going to be related to their email address. So we will provide Hay a list of our employees and their email addresses, and they will link that to those employees. And so that will be kind of their identifier that there wouldn't be multiple responses.
Does everybody in the county have an email address?
That's my understanding they do. Not everybody probably uses email, so that's one of the education campaigns is, we need to work with those employees don't regularly log on. We've got to be sure they know their password. We've got to help them with those kind of processes.
I know there's some departments where they don't have access to computers and that stuff. Sheriff.
There are some departments that also have some restrictions on what employees can get to from their work site, and we will work with those departments and IT to open it up for that survey. A few years ago, we did a county-wide survey about our wellness program, and those departments did allow us to open up their system so that employees could respond to those surveys, and we will just work with those departments.
Robin, I'm kind of anxious to see your list of questions. This whole concept of an employee survey has always given me a bit of of heartburn
Okay?
in that I don't want it to just be an opportunity for a gripe session. While it may be useful to know what some of the folk are griping about, I don't think it's a basis for making public policy. We need to get back stuff that we can use.
And I think we probably have confidence in our vendor that they've done this long enough that they've probably had those kinds of issues before. And certainly I'll have them prepared to address that at the kickoff meeting and get with them on some of that. But I feel confident that, you know, no employer wants it to just be a gripe session, and that there needs to be valid feedback from the employees, and hopefully they'll be candid in those things that we do well and those things that we might need some improvements in. But as the judge, you know, often says when he visits with the employees, many of our employees think this is a wonderful place to work, and we do a lot of things right. And so hopefully we'll hear from them as well, not just the unhappy ones.
I'm hopeful that if y'all get the questions out to us today, that we can have some time, you know, if there are questions, that we can have some time next week. And again, I would rather us spend the time making sure that we're okay with the questions that are being asked, as opposed to, okay, we got to get everything done because our deadline says that we're going to do the survey on the 27th.
I completely
And the majority
agree.
of those questions are the ones that we actually receive from Hay. And that's one of the things Robin said, Hay does this. I mean, that's their line.
I understand that. But I also understand that what employees may tell the judge is different from what they tell each other.
And may say anonymously as well.
Surely you jest.
Don't call me
Trust
Shirley.
me, they won't tell me a lot of things.
Right.
Robert, 64 questions? Isn't that a bit much?
And you may think we have redundancy. Certainly, as you look at it, you may think we can eliminate some of those questions. There are 31 core questions that Hay includes in the survey that they believe will minimally address the dimensions that they feel are important. Then we had some questions that we could choose from a extra list, and we went through those. And then we have 5 or 6 unique county questions that we ask. So certainly if you think there are questions that are redundant and we may not need as many, we can have that feedback as well from you. So
I would also suggest that we have pretty specific instructions on how, if they want to access this survey from home,
yes, sir.
exactly how they would do that, because that may be necessary for some of our employees.
And Judge, you mentioned a moment ago the timeline, and we actually concur with you about we'd rather do this right and a little slower. We've actually already delayed the project a little more. We thought we'd have the surveys out in January or February, and here we are almost to the middle of February. And it's we have told Hay we would rather do it right and take longer than to meet a specific deadline, because we want to be sure we've really tried to look at all the criteria and that we've approached it correctly. So once we have sent the survey out and Hay has received the responses, we will have the ability to run a variety of aggregate reports. I assume we will want one large report countywide, but something for the court to consider is we're going to ask for some demographic information, so we could possibly run reports based on age groups, on gender, on department or departmental groups. We might want to run a report on all the law enforcement groups, or maybe all the administrative groups, or that kind of thing. So we can do that as well. And that will be something for you all to consider as we go forward. And then, of course, Hay will come and do a presentation of the results and provide us with some recommended action plans. And we will communicate those back to the departments and the key stakeholders and what have you, and of course the employees. And this will not be a finite project. I think a lot of engagement surveys have ongoing action plans, and maybe in a few years we might want to follow up with our employees and see if we've addressed the appropriate issues. That will be obviously a call for the court to make as we go forward. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. Let me ask you a question about something which I'm not sure. It was 3.1.2, and I know that doesn't have your name beside it.
Tell me which one, I don't
It
have
has
to
to do with
memorize.
the online training survey.
That would be Miss Johnson, and she's here in the audience if you'd like to ask.
Come on down. It's really, it looks like the survey has been done, it looks like the results are in, and it looks like the summary report has been issued.
Yes.
I'm probably fixing to embarrass myself, but have we seen that as a court yet?
You probably haven't seen it as a court, but we submitted the report to the administrator's office the end of October, October 31st. I do have some copies, or I can provide copies later.
So the administrator said.
That was actually our first milestone, was to complete the survey and provide the results. And so, do you want me to give you?
The rule is whenever you send me something, call me in about a day or two and say, remember I sent you something.
Okay.
So at least I didn't embarrass myself. I
No.
embarrassed my administrator, but that's okay.
That was probably my
I do
bad.
that regularly.
And I think that was just probably a part, it probably went to Candace, and that was a part of our milestone. Not that I'm throwing anybody.
Well, Candace, you almost got through the day all right. You just,
I'm sorry.
You did all right.
Can I have some of your water, Candace?
How do those bus wheels feel?
Oh, no.
Why don't you go ahead and, can
Obviously,
she
we will.
provide us a copy of the report? Do you mind at this time if she?
I encourage it.
Okay.
I encourage it.
Can I provide you a copy after we?
I
I'll
think
just
it-
resend it?
Yeah.
So sorry.
See, Robin, you got off easy.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much on that. That's all I got.
Oh, that was easy.
Run.
Miss Glenn, does she work for you? Yes, she does. Okay, we'll need.
I'm going to go ahead and give you the.
So are these the questions?
But Miss Glenn works for you.
Like I said, we'll have that conversation.
Oh, okay, fine.
You don't have any more questions for Robin? Okay, we're now going to move into the transportation piece.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Transportation Initiative is 5.1.1. It is to engage a transportation planning consultant with direction and expectations in developing a Tarrant County strategic program that improves and benefits both Tarrant County and the region. To review what's been done to date is as follows. The start date for the initiative was February 25th, 2014, almost a year ago. The request for proposals was released to the public on April 9th of 2014. There was a pre-proposal conference held on April 28th of 2014. We received 4 proposals from potential transportation planning consultants on June 30th of 2014. On August 5th, the Commissioners Court granted approval to schedule oral presentations by the 2 recommended consultants, Dean International, along with Fries and Nichols. On August 26th, Commissioners Court approved postponing the September 2nd oral presentations and the procurement of the transportation planning consultant. Today, we are requesting that the Commissioners Court provide further direction in the procurement of this consultant.
Is it permissible for us to invite those 2 vendors to come back and present their information and give us some sort of a briefing? That way we have an opportunity to questions and answers and so forth?
Or do we have to go back out?
I've asked the purchasing agent that specific question, and Jack, if you'd like to come up and answer that, or I can tell them what the end result was.
Good morning again. We can do that if the court so decides to, that's the direction that you want us to take. We've done that in the past. Those RFPs did expire. They were good for 90 days, and that time did pass. We recommended the two highest scoring RFPs, Dean International from Dallas and Friesen Nichols from Fort Worth, but yes, we could open up that process again.
What does open up that process again mean?
If the scope of work did not change, we could accept presentations to the court from these two firms.
Okay. I would suggest that I'm ready to do that.
Me too.
Me too. My concern still is that, as I recall, the lesser of the two was somewhere north of $500,000, and it ranged anywhere from $500,000 up to almost $800,000 for services, and there was, in both of them, there was an indication that that would be some of the preliminary work, but I think it was going to be a continuing deal after that. And I still do not feel like I'm prepared to spend that kind of money at this time as with regards to those types of services. I think we've got TxDOT. I think we've got the Regional Transportation Council and the COG, as well as folks in the process in this department, as well as that can help us identify projects and then spend that money on helping get things engineered or shovel-ready, as it were, plans done, so that as funds are becoming available, that we have projects ready to go with that deal. So, that my concern from the get-go on the two that we had in the RFPs were, they were a whole lot more than what I was ready to indicate or give any indication that I was willing to spend on that kind of project.
Well, I am not personally ready to decide that there's no value there without having heard the presentations. I'd like to at least hear the presentations, and apparently two other members of this court agree with me.
One step that we would have to...
Wait just a second, Commissioner Fickers.
I'm sorry.
Jack, is there an option to negotiate the scope of services in line with the pricing structure? Is that an option, or are we, if we're locked, if the two vendors are locked in, there was a pretty significant difference in the cost.
We sat down and reviewed 262, the statute that applies to this, and one step that would need to occur, we have just assumed, which is not the thing to do, that both of these vendors still might be interested in making a presentation to the court at that same price level. Normally, best and final offers do not occur until after a presentation is made to the court. That's kind of the process.
Isn't it usually after we've selected one of the two?
Yes, sir. And we've not contacted or had conversations with these firms since we said we're putting this on hold. So we would certainly need to do that and be sure that they still want to play.
Well, one firm must be interested because they're in court today.
I hadn't talked to them.
I would guess.
We were simply waiting direction from the court before we made those contacts.
Well, I'll motion that we invite the two finalists back for a presentation, question and answers, so that this court can clearly understand what is being offered and what the values are and so forth. That way we have more information that we can decide whether it's worth the value or not. So I make a motion that we invite those two vendors back for a presentation.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Corey. We needed direction on that so that we can move forward. Your Honor, members of the court, this is the end of the work session. Is there, what we tried to do, basically the court created two actions. First was the governing for results policy, And it was a comprehensive order that you all passed. The strategic plan was part of that. And so we're doing quarterly updates, and we'll send those to you. We'll make those as court presentations also. We'll try to get the updates out to you maybe a week or two earlier, so that if you have any comments or questions, you can give us those so that we can be more prepared or as we come forward and make those presentations to court. So with that, Your Honor, if there's any other questions, we'll be more than happy to attempt to answer them.
I guess the one other question that I would have is on our economic development part. We talked about, I mean, it looks like there's been a lot of results compiled and all that. When do you expect that that's going to come to court for discussion?
I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't hear exactly what the question was.
Well, on page 15 in our first quarter results, we talk about a lot of stuff that has been compiled, evaluations of active abatements, TIFs, those types of things. It says provide recommendations on new economic development tools to the Commissioners Court. That was supposed to have occurred in September. It has not. So I guess I'm wanting to know, when do you think you're going to be able to come to the court, at least kind of present us with the current update on where we are on all of our abatements, our TIFs, and any recommendations that you might have on an ongoing basis as far as other tools that might be out there, or if we're even willing to consider other tools, because we might not be.
Two parts. On the overview of what we did last year, we have compiled the individual summaries for each TIF, and we worked with Jim Duff, and we've got those online now. So we'll be updating those every year. So right now, if you go online, you can see that. But that is going to be compiled into a report, along with a report on our active tax abatements, and then other economic development programs that we utilized over the past year, like the foreign trade zone, enterprise zone projects, those type of things. And I'm completing that now. My schedule was a little aggressive, and I didn't get it completed. So that will be through by the end of the second quarter. The other is the new tools, and I have done an analysis of Section 381, and specifically as it relates to a project in Commissioner Wynn's court district. We talked on that, but I have not presented that to the full court. And looking at it, we looked at it may be better to look at it comprehensively by also looking at an update on not only our tax abatement policy, our TIF policy, historical site tax exemption, along with new tools. So it's a comprehensive look at our toolbox, new and old, and how it can be revised. So that's what we're working on now.
Okay. I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask a really frank question here, okay? And this is for GK as well. Economic development is critical in the future, economic future for all county. We are at about $2 million people right now. In the next 10 years or so, we will add another million people, okay? We only have one person in economic development, okay? Among all the TIFs and all the TERS and all the things that you are responsible for, I know that a very important project in Arlington has been delayed several times. And I talked to the developer, and he basically said he's about to go to the market with the investment and so forth, that he needs a decision from the county. And I'm using that as an example among all the things that you have to do. I mean, GK and Lisa, do you feel like you're understaffed? I mean, I do. I think so. Of 2 million people in Tarrant County, and among all the economic development initiatives that we have to work with various cities within our county. Do you feel that, or is there an issue with productivity or efficiency?
I try to utilize interns every summer from the colleges, and they help me gather information and data. It is a process that's time-consuming, and to try to keep these things up, and that's what we've been trying to utilize in the past, is college interns to help work with some of this.
Well, this is not the first time we've had this discussion, GK, and I agree with Commissioner Wynn that this department does appear to be understaffed, and We ought to take a look at it and look at ways to add more resources to the department.
Let me say that that this is something we've been struggling with for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And we're trying to augment our capacity by paid interns, either college seniors or actually graduate students that are in this field. We're still not where we need to be. And so let us have 30 days and we'll bring you a recommendation. Because we don't disagree with anything that's being said. We need to turn things around faster, and that's an internal issue, and we're trying to put resources to it without impacting substantially our budget, but let us bring that back to you.
I believe it's become too big a job for just one person.
I agree. I think another issue that we as a court might want to think about, because we're generally following the city. Is that the most effective way for us? And I know it seems to work pretty well, but are there opportunities where we might be a little more actively involved, still requiring the cities to be going with us on these projects? And I think some cities do a good job of taking the lead like we expect them to, but I'm not sure all cities are doing a good job. And I'm just questioning whether there's some opportunities that to bring jobs and import money, bring things like that in. That would be maybe a different philosophy on how to approach projects than what we're currently doing, where you really don't do anything until city calls you.
The cities or the chambers, and I will go with them and present to prospects. But I will, to that matter, there are some of the smaller cities, especially that don't have staff, that need our help. And I know Patricia Ward in Community Development and I have met with some of the smaller cities, like Everman. Kennedale's pretty active, but they seek advice too. And that's why I've gotten involved with the Northwest Tarrant Alliance too, to work with them. So we can be more active in that area, especially in those smaller communities.
The one thing I agree with what you're saying. I think the one thing we have to be very careful of and would have to develop some sort of a policy about is I would not want us to be out leading the way where two cities within Tarrant County are competing for the same project, and now we find ourselves in a position of choosing one over the other. So there's a lot of instances where that wouldn't be the case, but we sure don't want to be out there leading the way.
And we do have some policies as it relates to when we have a project a viable project that two Tarrant County cities are vying for. And basically, it's, we create a set of initiatives that apply to either or. We don't change from one city to the other. Commissioner Fickus, one of the things that we may want to just create a briefing and a work session on this, because economic development and how that occurs, at least in Tarrant County, you all may not understand or know just how that process flows. And it's an element of prospecting. It's an element of who gets the calls whenever there's an organization that wants to move to Tarrant County. Normally that resides in the Chambers of Commerce, and they do most of the major prospecting for projects. The problem is that you have small towns that don't have Chambers of Commerce.
Aren't there certain things that we can only do when the city has done? I mean, are the TIFs or some of that stuff we can't initiate without a city initiating it?
The cities have to initiate the TIFs. The cities have to actually initiate the tax abatements also.
What happens if you have a TIF, or you have somebody who comes in and wants to move into the unincorporated area?
The legislature changed the statute that actually said that the county could establish a TIF, but the Constitution was not changed. So right now, it would still requires a constitutional amendment to change that section.
So a city, whose ever city's
In their ETJ.
would have to begin that process.
Correct.
We can join almost all TIFs and tax payment. We join the process rather than initiate the process.
Now, again, to what GK was saying with the prospects, I had something recently that came in, and they were looking at 2 sites in Tarrant County. So I always make it clear to the consultants that, we are there to support either city, because we're not going to choose one over the other. And I do get calls sometimes, Commissioner, and I try to listen to what they're looking for and then send them to the people in the different cities if they tell me what areas and what they're looking at.
But if you would like, we could be more than happy to set up either a briefing, a more extensive briefing, or a work session on economic development, in addition to coming back to you within 30 days on the staffing issue.
I think the staff issue is something that, and Lisa, I know I don't see how you keep up what you got personally. There's a whole lot involved that, once a deal is struck, it's not really struck until everything's signed, sealed, and delivered. And sometimes that becomes a huge endeavor because we don't do anything until, the city does something and, and downstream all this stuff starts flowing. So I can see where additional help other than interns who are here for typically a short period of time and maybe never get the opportunity to see the big picture.
Yeah, and economic development is not just about TIF, and it's not just about recruiting corporations, right? It's about making sure that we have access along our major transportation highway. It's about developing talents, education. It's about developing our workforce and diversify our workforce, okay? We have all those components already going on, but the challenge is there is not a body that had to help coordinate that collaboration to maximize the effectiveness of our work. And I think where this body can come in is we can provide that leadership, that clarity, that collaboration, especially among smaller cities and so forth. So I think it's important that we look at economic development from a comprehensive standpoint instead of just various tools that we are accustomed to.
I agree.
We have one more slide. Candace, you want to go ahead and do that last slide, and then we'll conclude.
I'll be brief, but we just want to give you an update on the development of the department scorecards. We've taken a multi-phase approach. In total, as you can see, there are 4 phases. Our first phase, which served as our pilot group, included HR, IT, and transportation. Even though all these departments vary in their size and complexity, one common theme that we saw is that we needed to provide additional training. We partnered with the Management Development Institute to offer a training session where we provide participants a review of the strategic plan, the Governing for Results policy, and also provide training on the different types of performance metrics. Then we continue the conversation of how we can refine our current metrics and develop them into key performance indicators. We are currently in our phase 3 departments. And we've had over 85 participants representing 20-plus departments in the county. We like to take this time to really thank those elected officials that have supported us and participated in the program, including our county clerk, our district clerk, and also our tax assessor, Mr. Ron Wright. People have been very supportive of the program. Staff has been very supportive. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the timeline for our training and reporting. It's kind of like, I should say in FY15, we're going back again and implementing or developing those scorecards, and you see it's staggered. So we first provide the training, and then the following quarter, the department actually begins reporting. For FY16, the idea is that all departments, county departments, will have an opportunity to take part in the training and develop their scorecards, and then in FY16, we'll have a full year of data that we'll be able to report to the public. So if you have any questions about that, just want to give you an update of where we are.
I appreciate the attempt to come up with a scorecard for our commissioners' court
Yes, sir.
precincts. The difficulty in doing that, as I'm sure you found out, is that we all do different things in different ways, and trying to standardize a scorecard
Right.
when there's such variability in what we do
Yes, sir.
is a challenge.
Yes, it's a challenge, but we are working with
Because
the,
we're not going to change what we do to fit some scorecard.
absolutely, yes, sir. And we will customize the
You're gonna have
scorecards
to
to,
customize for each office.
yes, sir.
What is the, you say phase one, we've gotten the training and we actually have our first reporting. Can we see, what do these scorecards look like?
Oh, I'm going to send you a copy of those scorecards. But again, with FY15, since it's an implementation year, it's going to be staggered, so we won't have a full year of data, but we can certainly show you what we've collected so far. Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Great job.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Commissioners.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
We'll now recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087. Return from our closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.